Jevin Odom is an American born and raised from the Bay Area. His parents weren't in his life growing up, and he was instead raised by his grandfather, a righteous man that was a Christian pastor. Jevin, I'm curious, brother. How did a kid that's raised by a Christian pastor end up finding Islam? What's your story?
Basically, my story starts off being born in a broken home. My mom kind of didn't want me. My father passed away very young. So I grew up very unwanted. My grandfather took the responsibility to raise me at a very young age, around 4 to 5 years old. And as long as I can remember, I was raised in a household of love from him. My grandfather was everything I had. He was everything that I believed in. Growing up, he always fostered this emotion of forgiveness, this emotion of love, and this emotion of being a protector. So I trusted my grandfather in a lot of things, and I wanted to be like him. In my grandfather's house, there was always religious books, and so I'd always read, and I'd always try to be as smart as him one day. And when I was old enough, I started to look more into Christianity because I knew my grandfather was Christian. And I would read the Bible. I'd read all the theology books that he would have. And I became very well read in Christianity. And later on in my life, around 11 or 12, I started to take action. When I would go to school, I would set up Christian clubs. I would minister. I'd go on little mission trips. I was very active in the church, even as a very young child. And that was basically how I grew up, religious-wise. I think that...
Why were your parents not in your life?
My mom had me very young. And I don't think she was ready for that responsibility. My father, I don't believe, was ready for that responsibility either. Unfortunately, he did pass away when I was around 3 or 4. So I will never have the opportunity to talk to him in person, as of right now.
And you said your father was a Muslim or just Egyptian?
So, yeah, he was just Egyptian. So
okay.
That's all I know. I don't know too much. I'm still trying to get more info about what's going on with him and my family line. But as of right now, all I know is that he was an Egyptian man, and that he was in Los Angeles.
So. You said his last name was Abdul Qadir.
Yes, sir.
Right, that's crazy.
Yeah.
And did the Trinity make sense to you as you were growing up? Like everything about Christianity, you're saying you were passionate about it, took in the footsteps of your grandfather.
Yeah, so everything that I learned was from his library of books, also from his teaching, his wisdom, and as well as going to Bible college after high school. So I had an opportunity to go to a discipleship/Bible college where we would go to the church Monday through Friday, sometimes Saturday, and then obviously Sunday for church. And I was on staff, cleaning, memorizing scriptures, feeding the homeless.
Were you a choir boy at all?
I tried.
Were you singing?
But I think, my pastor knew that I liked the limelight a little too much. So he was like, you know what? We're going to have you do something a little bit more humble, like cleaning the toilets. You know what I'm saying? So, shout out to my youth pastor on that for really humbling me on that. But I wasn't a choir boy. I definitely worked in the youth, though. I worked in the youth as a youth leader, basically, and with the kids. That's really my passion. I love kids. I love working with kids and seeing the youth, really, want to do better for themselves, So, yeah, that's basically.
And what happened next? You were saying, so how did that lead you to Islam? Because you have a passion for Christianity at this point.
Yeah.
This is your life.
Exactly. So I would say what we say in Christianity is I was on fire. I was on fire for Jesus. I had all these plans. I had all these things I wanted to do. for Christianity. I wanted to do better. Coming from where I came from, that's all I had. That's all my hope was, to do better. You know what I'm saying? And I think when I moved away from my church, unfortunately, I had a kind of a church identity crisis, to where there was churches around me to where I moved at my new location, which is in Phoenix, Arizona, and I didn't really feel the churches around me were what I was used to and what I wanted. I feel like there was like a mind switch, and I think I started to really do some more research about Christianity, and I realized that when it comes to Christianity and the label of being Christian, it's not something that I agree with, because Jesus never said to make a religion out of his teachings, right? And even if you do believe in the teachings of Jesus, there's not anywhere in the Bible that says, okay, we're going to start calling ourselves Christians. Not even in the Bible, right? The word Christian was a label given by the Romans to mock the followers of Jesus, right? To call them little Christ. So it was a word to mock them. So I didn't want to be called that. Even though I believed in the teachings of Jesus, I didn't want to be called Christian. If you ask me, what do you believe in? I believe in the Bible. I believe in God. I believe in Jesus' teachings. You know, obviously I believe that Jesus is the Son of God. That's all I would say. Oh, you're a Christian. No, don't call me that. Because it's more than that. You know, even when you talk to someone and they have a label on you, oh, I'm this, I'm that. Oh, you're Christian? Oh, I know everything that you're about. You know, I think the beautiful thing about Muslim, like being Muslim and what Muslim means, is like you're submitting to the will of Allah, right? And some people don't know that. They just think, oh, you're Muslim. Well, this is what a prototypical Muslim is, so I don't want no parts of that, you know? But explaining, I'm Muslim, and this is what it is. You know what I'm saying? And we're all born Muslims. Even when I used to hear that too, like, we're all born Muslims. Like, I'm not a Muslim. You're not gonna tell me that. You know what I'm saying? Like, what the heck? That's a bold thing to say. But to understand the definition and say, man, what? Like, submitting to the will of Allah, to the will of God, that's deep. That's powerful. You know what I'm saying?
Yeah. And were you hearing anything about Islam at this point in your life at all?
Yeah. So
what did you know about Muslims at this point?
So at this point, when I moved, I started to have some like Muslim friends, and it's because I found out that I was Egyptian. So I was like, I'm trying to figure out more about, you know what I'm saying, North Africa. I'm trying to know more about that region, what they get into. And so I started to have like North African friends. And what I noticed was the majority of them were Muslim. So now I'm getting introduced to a lot of Islam through them. And now I'm getting introduced to the Middle East. I'm getting introduced to like, you know, some of the Eastern Asian countries and the Southern Asian countries. And it's really a big community, right?
How old were you at this point?
So I think I was around 22 at this point right now. Still like fresh, still, you know, eager to learn. And obviously, you know, being on fire, you know, in Christianity and just being very opinionated on what I believed in at that point, I would accept the conversation of Islam, but I would never say it's true. I respected a lot about Islam even then, you know what I'm saying, because of how orderly, how disciplined, how very similar it is to Christianity, you know what I'm saying? And I really would just have back and forth little debates, and you know what I'm saying? And even when my Muslim friends would like come at me with certain scriptures, hey, it says this, I'd always have an answer because I was very well educated. I was very well versed in the Bible. Everything I had an answer for. But there was that mutual respect, you know, and I think that was the first kind of seed that was planted for me, you know, in Islam. So,
And where did that journey take you next?
I think around that time is when a lot of craziness in the world happened. And I got to see the world for what it truly was. And it's not just my little area. Black Lives Matter happened, right? All that situation, everything that came with that, and COVID. And I really seen how the world reacted to all these things. And I was really conflicted with just human life and human beings and how they thought. And during the Black Lives Matter movement, I started to listen to a lot of Malcolm X, who was my grandfather's hero. And as we all know, Malcolm X was Muslim, right? Obviously, he was Nation of Islam, and then later, became, more
Orthodox.
more Orthodox Muslim, right? And I really wanted to see what he had to say, because Malcolm X used to really talk to these fools. You know what I'm saying? Like, he wasn't afraid, and I really wanted to be like that. I don't want to cower. I didn't want to be complacent. You know what I'm saying? And so I started to listen to his teachings, and I started listening to his story and how he came even into Islam, and I thought it was very powerful. And after COVID, I really started to kind of delve into some social media accounts that were Muslim, and just kind of tap in here and there. And we had the conversation earlier about how when I did have COVID, and I thought literally I was gonna die. I thought I was in big trouble, and I was listening to some of the videos on IG from the Keen Institute, just talking about just random stuff, nothing specific, just random stuff, and just the calmness and just what was being said. It really calmed my heart and kept me really hopeful in a time where I didn't know what was going to happen to me, so that's the next step, where it started to, now we got like a snowball, and at this time I'm still in Phoenix. And
At any point, are you questioning your own beliefs? Is there starting to become crack in the armor?
Yes, 100%.
Okay.
And I'd always ask my grandfather about it. I question him and see what he thought, or I'd question my friends, see what they thought about certain things. And again, during this time, I didn't want to be called Christian. I'm just a follower of Christ. That's all you need to say. I'm going to do it my own way, which wasn't really the best way to do it. But as you can see, I was starting to remove myself from that fold. I wasn't even going to church. I would listen to certain things, but I was slowly slipping away. And I think it was a transformation that needed to be had, because I had learned all this stuff and I had covered myself with all these things that I believed to be true. And I felt like Allah was really, stripping those things. Hey, well, you need to find out for yourself. You don't need to just be listening to somebody and just taking it as truth, which is what I was doing. And then just applying it because it sounds good. You know what I'm saying? Just because it sounds good doesn't mean it's the truth. You know what I'm saying? It has to agree with my spirit, and you have to be able to stand on it. So.
And your grandfather, he played the role, as you told me, of your mother and father.
Yeah.
He's a huge force in your life.
Yeah.
He's a pastor.
Yeah.
How did you feel with your relationship with him now that there's starting to become this crack in your armor? You've moved away from the church a little bit, and you're delving into other things. It
was kind of difficult because my grandfather's very straight edge. He's very strict, and he believes in what he believes, and whatever you think, even if you can prove that he's wrong, and that goes with anything with him. You're wrong. You're wrong to him, right? It's his way or the highway. You know what I'm saying? And my grandfather, and I want to mention this as well. He was blind for a lot of my childhood. So it was a very symbiotic relationship where he was taking care of me as a child, and I was also taking care of him, because we had no car growing up. When he would walk with his cane to come pick me up from as a kid, I'm helping him, we're helping each other. Like, it was so much depending on each other. And so I felt like I was doing him a disservice for not being this Christian man that he wanted me to be. And I felt like I was letting him down. But I also felt like this was my life, and I had to live it in truth. And I had to question everything. Because at the end of the day, and they teach about this in Christianity, there's not a bunk bed in heaven. You know what I'm saying? You can't just, when you pass away, you can't be like, well, I'm with him, so we can, can we go together? And no, everybody gets judged separately. You know what I'm saying? And so I knew I had to find my own way. And so my grandfather he wasn't really happy with it when I would ask him, and I would, joke about, hey, I'm about to become Muslim, right? Just as a joke, just as passing by. The older generation sometimes can be very rough with their language when it comes to that. And so he would, constantly make fun of me and constantly make fun of Muslims and stuff like that. And
ooh, what would he say? I'm curious.
so,
He'd be like, you're gonna be a terrorist.
yeah,
huh?
he'd always be like, you better not go with them terrorists. A funny thing, a real funny thing about him is he would always say, because I did have that last name, right? The Muslim last name. He'd be like, well, if the terrorists take over the United States, well, you have a, Muslim last name, so you'll be fine. And I'd be like, what does that have to do with anything? Like, that's not like, what? Like, he thought he was funny or whatever, but like, in the back of my mind, I always knew like, if I were to ever become Muslim, I could not really tell him. Like, this was probably going to be something that happens like very slowly, or like, like I could probably tell my close friends, but if I did tell him, then he would probably reject me, and he would probably be very upset, because I live with him, and I grew up under his parenthood, and I didn't want to make him upset, so.
So you were on your own, individually, genuinely looking into it, a little bit,
Yeah, just a little bit, just
bit.
So what's going on over there?
Little
What I'm saying? Like, oh, okay, I see y'all, but like, I'm gonna be cool, right? Like I still believe in what I believe in, because this is, it's you grew up with it, so it's it's in your system, it's in your subconscious even, this is, and also I'll be honest, in this space, the Muslims that I seen practicing Islam weren't the best, and growing in my maturity now, that's not really a good way to look at it. But in that time, I was like, bro, these guys are doing this and this. Like, I don't want to do that.
Like what? What were they doing? Like drinking, smoking?
Yeah, drinking, smoking, just acting very wild. And also, I felt like when I tried to get into the North African community and tried to be accepted, there was a lot of rejection because I wasn't Muslim. And I felt like, it's not that I just became Egyptian, like I just chose this. Like I, spun the wheel. And I'm like, oh, Egyptian. Like, okay, let's do it. Like, like this is what I am, and I want to know more. Why am I getting rejected? Why am I getting treated less than? Because I want to know more. And I'll tell you right now, I was very eager to learn more about, Egypt. I want to learn more about the North Africa, Middle East, the language, the culture, even the religion. I want to know more. But I was rejected, and especially being from America as well, and how I grew up in America. You don't know Arabic? Oh, okay. Well, we don't. You're not Muslim? Oh, okay. We're gonna treat you this certain way, and that kind of turned me off from Islam for a little bit, until I had to realize this is not about them. I'm not becoming Muslim because of them. I'm becoming Muslim for myself and for my family. You know what I'm saying? We're changing the tide for my family. I'm not changing it for them. You know what I'm saying? And, even when I did convert, there was a bunch of people. Bro, I thought you're already Muslim. And I'm like, what? Like, when did I ever announce it? Bro, like you live your life as this way. Like, you're always around Muslims. Like, you're always, you know what I'm saying? Like, you're always defending. Because I defended my brothers. I considered them my brothers at that time, even though I wasn't Muslim, because they were good guys. Some of the most solid men that I've ever met in my life, my age.
Oh, okay, so brothers. These are different than the first earlier Muslims.
So you have the negative and you have the positive, right? So you have the yin and yang, right? There's some solid brothers, you know what I'm saying? And they had my back, even though I didn't, you know what I'm saying, believe in what they believed in. They still had my back, and they knew me, in that sense of like, this is a good guy as well. And we all cool. Like, we can all coexist. Not this notion that people have about Muslims, like, oh, he's not Muslim. Like, we have to beat him up. We have to kill him.
He's an infidel.
Yeah, you know what I'm saying? Like, bro, like, that's not what it is. Like, they was very welcoming, and and I really respect them for that, and they know who they are, you know, because I reached out to them. But it is funny that everybody kind of, not everybody, but some people are like, bro, we aren't you already Muslim? Like, why are you announcing it again? Like, you know what I'm saying? So,
and you tend to find that with everyone that converts or reverts to Islam, they were usually had the character and had the mentality of a Muslim before they even converted.
Yeah.
Now it seems hindsight is 2020.
Oh yeah.
And you and I, looking back at this story now, we can see how Allah was getting you prepared
Exactly.
For Islam. What was the turning point? What was the moment where you decided to convert to Islam or even look into it seriously?
Yeah, man. I think last year, I would say last year, around the winter time, I actually moved to Dallas. My grandfather had started to get more sick, and it was a mutual agreement to where we were both like, okay, well, I'm gonna go to this facility to where basically an old folks home, and I want you to go and live your life because you've been taking care of me for so long, and I feel like you're kind of just stuck here. I want you to go live your life. So we mutually agreed. It's very hard for me, but we mutually agreed. I moved to Dallas. We kept in contact, calling each other every now and then. And one day, around Christmas, we're just having a conversation and, you know, just chopping it up. And he says, "Hey, I need to talk to you." And I'm like, "Yeah, what's up? Like, what's going on?" And he says in a very, like, quiet voice, he says, "Yeah, man, I converted to Islam." Now, I'd love to sit here and tell you that I was like, what? Like, wow. Like, I totally believed him. I was like, man, stop it. Like, you know, like, oh, you know, you're Muslim now? Like, okay, cool. You know, like, we had that, like, connection to where we joked. And he'd always joke, right? And then he started crying on the phone. My grandfather was a crier, but this type of cry was very powerful for me. Enough for me to understand that this was real. This wasn't a game. And for the first time, I'm on the phone. I don't know what to say. I'm just like, what do you mean? Like, what are you saying? And he just told me, he was like, I have to tell you later. Like, we're gonna have to sit down and have a talk because, like, this is the decision I made, and, like, there's just so much I need to tell you. A mixture of emotions, I'll be honest. I just couldn't believe it. I just was like, I was like, I'll call you back. You know, I'll call you back later. And I remember getting off the phone and just being confused. I didn't tell anybody. Usually with that type of news, you kind of like, sometimes you just want to gossip with other family members. Hey, you know, Grandpa just said he converted to Islam. I didn't tell anybody because I didn't want anybody to find out. Mainly because my grandfather was getting old. So he could have been delirious. He could have been just saying this, then saying that. Just giving excuses for something that he had said so clearly and has shown emotion to. Right? If he really was delirious or if he really was like just saying whatever, that emotion wouldn't have came with it. It wouldn't have been that profound, you know, that moment. And so I remember just kind of going on with life. And then a month later, I got a call from his nurse and they said that he was dying. And I was at work, enjoying my day. And my heart stopped and I was really scared, obviously. My grandfather was my first love. Not only was my father and my mom, he's my brother. He's my best friend. Everything in one. Anything I ever needed. You know what I'm saying? Like, it was coming to an end. And I got to have one last phone call with him. And he wasn't really, like, speaking real words. And I just kind of told him, I said, you know, I'm going to take care of the family. I'm going to make sure that we get everything right. Your mission. You know. Did
you address the Islam thing again? Or you actually just didn't take him seriously at that point?
I think I was just more worried about like just him physically. I think I didn't even think about him converting at all up into that, like, to that point. And during this time, matter of fact, I must insist to say, I was actually doing Ramadan just to try it. So I was fasting, not Muslim, just fasting, right? That whole month. And he passed, like, what, 2 or 3 weeks into Ramadan? And the whole world stopped for me. I remember getting they gave me basically 24 hours. I got a ticket, tried to get there as fast as I could. As soon as I got there, he was gone. He had passed in the night. They had taken him to the funeral home. And my mom lived in Arizona at the time as well. So I stayed with her, and it was a very beautiful moment. And this was a sign, one of the signs, I believe, that was from Allah. Me and my mom were never really close. And for her to allow me to come into her house and sleep there while we got ready for the, basically funeral arrangements, she gave me a gift. She had recently went to Morocco, and she handed me a prayer rug. Beautiful blue prayer rug with, it was like a picture of a mosque. Very beautiful. She's like, here, this is for you. I don't know if you want it or not. I said, yeah, I'll take it. It looks beautiful. I'll take that, And I remember that night, I prayed on it. I didn't know how to pray at that point, but I was like, I'm just going to pray. Like how I see them pray, I'm going to pray. And
you prostrated?
Yes. Okay. Yes, sir. And unfortunately, I think sadly that if I was more smart or just using my critical thinking, I would have really looked into Islam as far as like the funeral, like how the body's prepared and how it needs to be done. But it just didn't happen. In his will, he wanted to be cremated. So that's what they did. And a lot of the other situations that needed to be handled regarding him, it was up to his oldest son. And his oldest son kind of handled it. Even though he was like not responsive about it, didn't really care. But yeah, I think from that moment on, I was like, I need to look more into this.
Did your grandfather tell you how he found Islam?
No. So that phone call that we had when he told me, that was basically our last actual talking phone call. So I think that, maybe I could have called him the next day. Maybe I could have called him the next week. I sometimes think about those things, Sometimes it'll haunt me, To really, I just sat down and just, why? What, like, did someone come talk to you? Did you watch something on the TV? Did you listen, Because my grandfather, one thing with my grandfather, every time that I've lived with him, the Bible was always going on in the house. As far as the audio Bible, he would have it in a CD, radio little thing. As soon as you go to sleep, the Bible's playing. You're hearing, some guy's voice talking about our Father, what I'm saying? And then you wake up and you hear like the Bible playing. You go to school, come back, the Bible's playing. It's always throughout the house. And I thought it was a beautiful thing because I'm like, the word of God in the house, if anybody try to come in here, they're going to get hit with the word of God. You know what I'm saying? So, like there had to be something. My grandfather's blind, so someone either has to talk to him or he has a DVD that he listens to or a CD. And my grandfather would buy audio things and listen to them. So what did he listen to? And I sometimes think about that. I mean, unfortunately I can't find out now, but man,
you should probably go look into stuff and see if you could find some audio.
Yeah, for sure.
Because that's crazy that you're saying he was so firm on Christianity 100%. And in fact would, almost mock. I don't want to say that because now he's a Muslim.
Yeah, exactly.
But the idea of you even looking into Islam.
Exactly.
And I don't doubt at all that you had something to do with him looking into it. Now that you heard from him, and the last real conversation with him is that he became Muslim. Basically, he proclaimed his shahada to you, and then he passes away. Are you now thinking, what happened to my grandfather as maybe a Christian at the time? I feel like that would be crazy if my father, right before he died, told me he's now like a different religion other than Islam.
100%.
But obviously your grandfather chose the correct religion.
Yeah.
But to you at that point, that's not necessarily the case. How are you dealing with that? And at the same time, your mother and father just died almost.
Yeah. I think that I think I just didn't want to tell anybody, because even when he passed away and all the things happened, I didn't really tell anybody. I told my really close friends that were Muslim, I said, hey, I just want to let you know this is what my grandfather did. Take it with a grain of salt because of this, and this, because I was still denying it, right? As human beings, Allah will send you a sign and you'd be like, is that really Allah, or is that like coincidence? Isn't that science? And that's why I believe, Allah doesn't send like signs after signs after signs to where we're like, okay, like Allah, like if this is for me, send a shooting star right now. You know what I'm saying? Like, because even if Allah was like, okay, I'm sending a shooting star right now, we're still like the next day we're about, okay, Allah, if this person's for me, let like hail come down right now. You know what I'm saying? It's just like, no, that's not what faith is about. You know what I'm saying? But as human beings, we're always doubting what, you'll do something for me today, but what are you doing for me tomorrow? You know what I'm saying? Like, what are you, how are you showing me? And I think I just made a bunch of excuses, and I got to a point where even my life just kind of was just going downhill, and I felt very lost. Like I had no identity. And I think that's very important in religion in general. Like, you need to find out who you are as a person, and then you need to like really dig in deep and find the truth. Don't just accept it because it sounds good. Accept it because it's the truth, and you've looked through it, and you've researched it, and you've looked around, and you look at life. And so I think a couple months into like his passing, I kind of went through this soul search, and I was like, I think it's time to really look into what I believe in. And if my grandfather had converted, there has to be something deeper, and I need to go deeper. I can't be surface level. I need to go deeper. I need to find out why, and I think from, I would say, the summer of last year up until February, January, I just dug deeper. I listened to things. I read things, and I just kind of got into this mode where it's like, it's just about me right now. Not anybody else. Not what he did, she did, what they did. It's about me and my connection with God. Do I even believe in God at this point? You know what I'm saying? And ultimately led me to Islam.
So you're saying from this summer to this February?
Yeah, so last summer.
Last summer.
So last
2023.
Summer, yeah, so last summer I would say 2003 or 2023, probably like July. From July to like February, it was just it was very slow, but it was definitely this ongoing, like, I want to know who I am and where I come from.
Interesting. And from October to February, we know a genocide has been taking place.
Exactly, 100%.
How did Palestine affect the story at all, or did it?
Yeah, so Palestine's a very important like part of my story, because when I first started having Muslim friends, like I've told you, as a Christian, you support Jews. That's it. That's our homies. You know what I'm saying? We rocking together. If they pick on you, we're going to beat them up. You know what I'm saying? We're going to get on them. You know what I'm saying? And you always protect Israel. You always protect them because they're like, that's God's people. You don't question it. There's never any question. They're just like, well, all you hear in the media is like, yo, there's these Palestinian dudes, and they're trying to like, they're trying to hurt God's people. It's like, who even is this? You know what I'm saying? And then you see all this stuff in the media about them being terrorists, them being this and that. And that's all you know, right? And I think for a lot of people that are in the Middle Eastern world, I think for them it sounds really like barbaric. And I think it sounds like crazy. Like, so you're just calling them terrorists for no reason? Like, you didn't really look into it? In America, there's a lot of distractions. There's school. There's, I grew up in a very hostile environment. So I'm worrying about my next bite to eat. I'm worrying about all these different things. It's not an excuse, but you have to understand that I'm not going to go into reading about the Palestinians when I, what I'm saying, like, that's not what I'm going through. And when I started having Muslim friends, and I was like telling them, I was like, bro, like, that's Israel's land. Like, you cannot, like, you can't just be coming up in here and telling, this and that. And they're like, what? No, that's not Israel. We're just going back and forth. And it got very crazy to the point where I was like, man, this is why I don't mess with that community, because they always think that they're better and they deserve it. One person, this one girl, she direct messaged me. She said, hey, before you do anything else, I want to tell you our story real quick, and I want you to do your research and then formulate your real opinion on it. And she just gave me a whole bunch of just stuff, and I read it because I respected her for even just coming to me privately and just saying, hey, I'm not going to insult you, but I want you to hear our story, because I know for a fact that you have it. And to be real, a lot of people right now, before TikTok, how could you search for something like this? What are you going to get? You're going to get the Zionist opinion, or the Zionist perspective. That's what you'll see on Google. Oh, it's a conflict. Oh, it's this. Oh, it's a disagreement.
It's complicated.
Yeah, it's complicated. So like, we're just gonna let them, somebody reads that, they're like, oh, okay, well, that's got nothing to do with me. Fine, it's complicated. It's that, whatever. When I read what she had sent me, I was deeply disturbed. But when I took the opportunity to research myself, and again, my hero, Malcolm X, for Malcolm X to come out and say what he said about the Zionist state, right? A man who was not afraid to speak against falsehood, to speak against the evils of this world. I was like, whoa. You almost become ashamed. I've been defending something that's not really what I believe in. You know what I'm saying? And I really I changed. I changed like almost overnight. And I started supporting Palestine, and all my friends know, what I'm saying? I've always consistently supported. I've always been to protests. I've always, been very vocal about it. Cause, I don't want to call out anybody, but as a man, if you're being lied to and you're being taught certain things that's not true, you should be able to voice your disapproval of something. You shouldn't be stagnant or complacent and just be like, well, that's just how the world works. That's fine. No, I mean, that has nothing to do with me. Yeah, it has everything to do with you. You're paying taxes. You're involved in something that you don't even know. And whether Palestinians are your people or not, seeing that as a human being, you should be able to speak and say that's not right. I'm not asking men to go to the protest or boycott. You know what I'm saying? Some people can't do it, cool. But be able to stand on 10 feet, right? Or 10 toes, I'm sorry. And be able to say, look, this is not right. I don't agree with it. And you're not going to come in here and tell me this is and that. Even biblically, as a Christian, there's prerequisites that are supposed to happen before Israel becomes a nation. And those have not been met. So biblically, if you're a Christian listening to this, it's not biblical.
Isn't it a little bit self-contradictory as a Christian to support the Zionist state anyways? Because, I mean, to say that you're buddy-buddy with the Jewish people, I mean, they literally believe that the Virgin Mary was a prostitute and that Jesus was a liar and that they're both in hell. Like the Talmud goes into depth about the punishment of Jesus and Mary. While the Muslims believe that that Mary was a virgin and Jesus was a virgin birth.
Yeah.
So we're closer to Christianity than Christianity is to Judaism.
Yeah. But but you
don't know that.
Yeah, like people are just like, oh, well, I don't care. It's that complacency. It's that comfortability. And it's also, when people used to tell me that specific thing, because, obviously we would have those conversations. We already know Israel crazy. If you read the Old Testament, it's them just being crazy. Literally, Moses just brought them out of Egypt. They seen everything. Like I said, the signs. You just seen God do all these things. God goes up and gets, not God, but Moses goes up and gets the basically to get the 10 Commandments, get the law. And he comes back down. They're partying, worshiping false idols. And it ain't been that long. You know what I'm saying? So a lot of Christians, they say like, we know Israel's crazy, but we have to protect them because they're God's people. And I always, now I tell them, I say, look, if God's hand's really on this, think about it. when you think of the Old Testament as a Christian, you know these certain things. Old Testament is types and shadows of God's nature, what God does. That's what you believe in. If you believe the Bible is true, right? Every time God has delivered Israel from a certain situation, captivity or whatever, he's always done it in an honorable way, right? Whether it's Israel getting an army or whether just God just hands it to them. And there's no one that's going to like stand up against it. Nothing. So if you believe in God and you believe the Lord of the universe, the creator of all things, the one that says be and it is, has to use lying, cheating, and deceit, which is what the Zionist state has done, was Israel, this current state of Israel has done. You think God has to use lying, cheating, and deceit?
Murder, genocide.
All this stuff to establish his people's land? Do you think God has time for those cheap tricks? No, he never does that. If God says, yo, this is land for my people right here, right now, guess what? It's going to be that way. And there's no one that's going to like, yeah, there might be little skirmishes and little fights, but guess what? It's going to stand there and that's it.
But I don't understand. So if the Jewish people denied Jesus, aren't they no longer the chosen people? Aren't they no longer God's people? Because if the Christians really believe that the Jews are God's people, then why aren't they Jewish?
Yeah, I think that's a very like complicated explanation behind that. But I think that because they were the first people to be chosen, they have that sacred position. So yes,
according to
the Bible, exactly,
the first people,
exactly.
Okay.
So to the Bible, they're the first chosen people because of Abraham, Isaac, Jacob, who became Israel, right? Like they have that special reserve. And then because of Jesus comes in, basically he's like the bridge. He's like the seal. He's basically like, hey, look, now you don't have to be Jewish. Now you don't have to sacrifice and do all these things to be in the fold of God's people. Now you guys are all God's people if you believe in me. That's what Christians believe. So now you're accepted into this Hebrew Jewish fold, but you're just not ethnically, I guess, a Jew. But the original Jews, they have that. That's what they believe.
So it's a racial thing.
Yeah, so it's almost a racial thing. It's like, okay, well, these guys are like set apart because they were chosen.
Oh, so there's like an inherent racism.
Yeah, you know what I'm saying? It's like, oh, we're this, and that's what that's how they act.
That's how they act,
right?
There's nationalism, supremacism, racism.
Yeah. And
the Christians just accept that. The Christians are like, yeah, you are racially superior.
Well,
that's interesting.
Superior, that's kind of a deep thing. I don't know if we want to get into that, but
that's interesting.
How they move and how they act and how they talk to other people, especially people that aren't Jewish.
Bro, that's why I always say I feel like Christians have an inferiority complex when it comes to Jews, because it's difficult not to when you're literally saying that these are the chosen people and they killed my God. Yeah. Like that's very hard to feel better than a people that have done two of those things. Yeah, that have two of those qualities.
And I know you've seen like the videos of like Christians going to like, I guess, little areas in like the Zionist state where Christians will go through like the little path of where Jesus went, and then there's like Jews like spitting on them. Yeah. And I'm just like okay, I understand that you're as a Christian, I understand that you're God's people, but if you spit at me, I promise you there's gonna be problems. You know what I'm saying? Like it's not like, I don't know how a person could be like, oh, it's okay, like like even if you still believe this is God's people, you need to be able to stand up and say something. I don't see anybody standing up and saying anything. And I'm not saying that there isn't, but there's just not enough. And like I said, it's that complacency that I don't like. I'm going to address the problems, and I want you to tell me why you're doing this, and I want you to tell me how this is biblical and how this is what God wants. Because to me, I don't see it. And even in like in reading into like Islam, like there's respect for the Jews. There's respect for the Christians. It's not oh, this guy suck. Like, there's Muslim countries where Christians are living fine. You know what I'm saying?
There's respect for humanity as a whole.
Exactly.
Like one of the whole chosen people concept, God questions in the Quran.
Exactly.
And talks about how, so regardless of the rest of humanity, right, Allah puts humanity on top of this situation. But okay, just going back to Palestine and your Islam. So you converted a month ago? 2 months ago?
2 months ago, yeah.
Okay. And so you're saying that you had your own pondering, your grandfather's passing and him converting to Islam, the shocking story. You had to go through your own situation. I mean, that's deep. And then right after that, the Palestinian situation happened.
Yeah. So I was already going to protest before I became Muslim.
Okay.
Because I just knew, like I said, as a man, this is not okay. I'm going to support because I have Muslim brothers and Muslim sisters that I respect. And so I'm going to go support them. And I'm going to show my solidarity. I know I'm on the right side of history. You ain't got to tell me. You ain't got to convince me. You're not going to, matter of fact, you're not going to get in my face and tell me that this is not right. Because I know for a fact it is. And so leading up to what happened in October, and now we have it on TikTok, and now we have it on video, you know, even as a person that's not even involved in that, you're seeing this stuff. You know what I'm saying? It just lit a fire. It lit a fire, you know, and I was like, no, like I have to say something. I have to do more. And then listening to a lot of podcasts, hearing the doctors that came from Gaza and what they were saying, how the, you know, like, bro, if my house is falling down, if I'm getting blown up, I wish I had the faith right now to be like, you know, pray and, you know what I'm saying, have a smile on my face and just be hopeful for paradise. Little kids, hopeful, praying, taking care of each other. This happened in America without, you know, people would be, you know, stealing from each other, just chaos. There's a love and there's a belief in something greater than like the trivial things that we put our time and effort in. You know what I'm saying? And I was like, man, like you're praying. Matter of fact, you're doing Ramadan. You're fasting and you're going through all this stuff.
You're fasting while being starved.
Yeah. And then the Ummah like just supporting it. Just like the fierceness of like, you go to the protests. You see all, you know, it don't matter. It could be man, woman, child, student, all speaking. Flags, praying. Even during the protest, you're praying. Rain, super hot, which I've been there. Super hot. I'm like, dang, man, I really want to go home. You know what I'm saying? They're ready to support their brothers and sisters. And it's not just Muslim Palestinians. It's for all Palestinians. So don't think that you have to support Palestinians because, you know, you have to be Muslim to support Palestinians. Everybody lives in Palestine. You know what I'm saying? All different types of people, all different shades of colors, you know, different backgrounds. It's not a religion thing. It's a human rights thing. You know what I'm saying? And it's just not right. You have to be able to speak the truth into that falsehood. You have to. Because if not, I truly believe one day when you eventually pass, which we all will, you're going to have to answer. Whatever God you believe in, I truly believe God's going to say, what did you do?
And when the historians, even when the kids in the schools are learning about this time period, you will be in the bunch that's insulted, that's considered evil, that's considered complacent, just as we look back on the South African situation and look at the bunch that was complacent and evil and supporting that. Don't be on the wrong side. That's what the wrong side of history 100%. Means, is when people talk about that group, you are automatically in that group. So, okay, all of this happened to you, man, but what made you decide to convert to Islam 2 months ago?
I think I had finally had this feeling in my gut where I was like, man, everything's adding up. Everything is like, I would listen to a podcast. shout out to the Sheikh Omar Suleiman. It's a bunch of podcasts I've listened to while I'm working, while I'm driving. And I was just like, man, you know what? I'm going to the Masjid. I don't care whatever he's saying right now. Like, it's hidden. I need to go. You know what I'm saying? Like, whatever. And then I hit up one of the homies and I was like, and I was trying to make it so discreet, like, so they wouldn't know that I was trying to convert. So I was like, do you know any, like, masjids I should go to? You have any suggestions? And then they were like, yeah, you should go to, Epic or, this other one. So I seen the first one. I was like, Epic. Okay. I'm just, that's the first one. She said, I'm going to take that one. I'm going to call it. I'm recalling setting up basically a meeting, like a appointment. And I remember going into the masjid, driving, very nervous. I've never been to a masjid with the sole purpose of just kind of, learning more. I've been to masjids for like, community things where Christians and, Muslims would come together and, do certain stuff. But this one was totally different. And I was nervous. I remember walking up and, I met the sheikh there and he smiling. Beautiful man. Beautiful.
You can say who it is. Ustad Bashur.
Yes.
He's been on here.
Beautiful man. And he was just like, okay, like, what do you have for me? And then I was like, okay, well, I started off my story, basically from birth to up to that point, and he listened. And, it was a tear in his eye for sure, listening to the specifics of everything that was going on. And he just kind of explained Islam very shortly to where I could really understand and understand what I was getting myself into. I'm really glad that he didn't, just try to lecture me or try to be like, okay, well, you need to convert now. Like, let's do it now. You know what I'm saying? He was very calm. He's very collected, very fatherly. I felt very comfortable in his presence, and he was like, hey, man, that's a beautiful story. I want to give you some material so you can look more into it. He said, I'm not going to rush you. I'm not going to tell you to do anything. He said, I want you to go home, wash yourself, get cleaned up, pray, and ask for Allah to make it easier for you to understand what you're reading. He gave me a Quran. He gave me a few books. And I left there kind of like, okay, I just made the first step. Like, okay, whatever happens. And realistically, it could have took me another year to come back, that's how life happens. But I really just started reading the Quran. And I'll be honest, I was probably 90% already ready to convert. But I feel like the material that I was reading was it was on point, and it just agreed with my spirit. And I think that that's very important. If it agrees with your spirit and it's the truth, and you can back it up, and you can look around you and say, well, this is what it is, I think a month later, probably 1 week into Ramadan, I texted him. He gave me his personal number, which I've never had before, right? I didn't expect him to do. But gave me his personal number, and I texted him. I said, hey, man, like, I'm ready. And he was like, okay, good. He's like, you made my day. He was like, when do you want to do it? And I was like, oh, I don't know. And he was just like, he's like, it's on you. Like, when do you want to do it? And there was a story he told me about how a young man had gotten into an accident, and he passed away, and he had just found Islam again, and he was getting back into it, whatever. And I just have this tug in my heart where it's like, I can't waste another day. Like, I have to come this day, because I could pass tomorrow. You can learn all this stuff, but like, are you ready to take that step? And anything can happen. So I remember saying, hey, this day, and I remember pulling up at my Free Palestine shirt. I thought I was doing something, right? I was like, I don't know how to dress, coming to the masjid. I'm gonna pull up. Obviously it's Ramadan, so we had, that nightly prayer, right?
Yeah.
I'm pulling up my sweats, and he was like, oh, okay. He's like, come on, brother. And I see all these guys, I was so nervous because so many people. And he was like, come on. He brought me to his office. He had a nice little, I don't know what it was called, but he had a nice little,
Thobe.
Yeah, thobe. And then he had the little hat. He's like, hey man, he's like, look, try this on. I'm gonna come back later and we're gonna see how you look.
Stuff about you got fire thobes too.
Yeah, man. So I was like, hold on, like I look kind of clean in this. And he's like, mashallah, you look good. And I was like, he's trying to butter me up. I don't know, but I felt really good about that. And then I remember just like it felt like the walk of my life, just walking from his office like to the front, and like seeing all these brothers just line after line after line. And everybody's looking at me. There must have been, I don't know how many, maybe 1,000 people in there. Like, it was a lot of dudes in there.
Yeah.
And I didn't practice what I was going to say. So he was just like, okay, well, just talk about your story a little bit and just give it. And I remember just being very nervous and not kind of understanding what I was really saying, but just kind of just pouring from my heart, just kind of how I felt. And I took my shahada that night.
SubhanAllah, man. And it felt that way. What, as we say, what comes from the heart hits the heart.
100%.
And I told you before we even started recording that your story, when you said it in Epic's video, it reached me in a different way than other stories have. Did you know that Qadhi, who Yasser Qadhi was, and he's the guy that came up and hugged you afterwards? Do you still know who Yasser Qadhi is, Sheikh Yasser
Yeah,
Qadhi?
so now I do, but I didn't know. So it's funny because like obviously I have Muslim friends like all over the states.
Yeah.
It's like, bro, you know this guy, like how do you know? Then I'm just like, bro, I don't know. Like it for me coming from my background and being there, I didn't know a single thing.
You didn't know that this was one of the most influential masjids in the country.
Exactly. I'm thinking like I see the bill, I'm like, yo, this is kind of cool. Like it's kind of big, but I'm thinking like, you know, it's just Texas. Like, you know, everything's bigger in Texas, like whatever. But once I like after I took my shahada and like people are talking to me about it, like, bro, you go to Epic, bro. I watched their videos from like, you know, from London, like, you know. I'm just like, bro, like, what? Like, it's that big, like, and it felt very overwhelming too because of how many people were talking to me about it. I'm not built for that. I'm not gonna lie. I'm not built for like many people coming at me at the same time. Like I'm usually like very to myself and kind of like, you know, a few people. So for all those, like everything that was a part of that, like that masjid, man, it was insane. And even like the first time I stepped in there, man, just love, you know. When I was going there during Ramadan, a bunch of brothers coming up to me, you know, Salaam alaikum, you know what I'm saying? You know, I barely know how to say, walaikum salam, you know how you doing? I don't know these guys. And they're loving on me. They're showing love. And a bunch of times where I didn't break my fast.
Muslims are a lot more touchy-feely than
definitely.
Huh?
I'm just like, okay, yeah, you know what I'm saying?
Makes
like,
you feel good, probably as an American.
Yeah, you know, because
American men don't receive any physical affection
I don't
at
know
all.
You exactly.
Yeah.
And it's that community where they're looking out for you, you know, and like I was saying, like breaking my fast, you know, they would text me, hey brother, you know, come to this room, we're breaking fast together. There's a bunch of guys sitting on the floor, right? Well, I'm used to sitting on chairs and, you know, fancy stuff. A bunch of brothers just sitting on the floor, got a bunch of food, everybody eating. Hey brother, try this. I'm like, I don't know what that is, but I'm gonna try it, and it's freaking good. You know what I'm saying? I'm like I test. I'm like, I'm probably not gonna eat that if I ever see it, but you know, brother's like, brother, try this. I'm not gonna say no, brother, I'm good. You know what I'm saying? I'm gonna try it, and I'm like, brother, this is great. Like, I need more of that, and we're just breaking fast together. And we all look different. We all come from different backgrounds, and we're all chilling. And it's a beautiful thing. It's a family, and that's important.
And that's what I think Malcolm X said. He said the first time I entered the Muslim community was the first time I forgot I was black.
That's real.
Yeah, bro. What's so beautiful about your story is that your grandfather passed away in Ramadan, and then you converted to Islam in Ramadan the next year. SubhanAllah, how Ramadan, and by the way, passing away in Ramadan in the Islamic tradition is viewed as a blessing, as a sign that Allah will bestow, inshallah, His mercy upon whoever passed away during Ramadan.
Yeah.
So that's a good sign, man. I think that's all we have, brother. That's all the questions I have for. Actually, before we go, so you're saying you've been Muslim for 2 months now. Have you felt anything negative from the Muslim community at all? You're saying all this positive stuff, but
I said the only thing is, I think definitely after I took my shahada, I posted on social media, so I posted on Twitter, for my Twitter community, because that's just the people that I know the most. It got a lot of likes, like a lot of people that post about it. It's just a lot of love from the Muslim community, and I understand that. There's definitely a bunch of comments that were a little discouraging, and then also just the overwhelming like messages that I received. I think when someone does convert, there has to be this understanding that, hey, like, this is a lot for them, you know, and you can't just come at them with a bunch of stuff. Like, you know, they have to take it at their pace. You know what I'm saying? Whatever that pace is. You can encourage them, support them, reinforce them, all that good stuff. But just, you know, coming at them with like, hey, you know, you got to do this, and just all this stuff, it's kind of confusing. Like, I can say, for instance, there's a bunch of times where people were saying, okay, well, you know, now that you're Muslim, you have to follow this way. Okay, are you Shia or are you Sunni? You know what I'm saying? I'm just like, bro, what is that? What even is that? You know what I'm saying? And I told people straight up, I was like, I don't know what that is, but I'm gonna tell you right now, I'm really focused on reading the Quran, and it's the holy month of Ramadan, and so I want to focus on my prayer. I want to focus on, you know, the basics. Let's start off with the basics first, and then if I decide that I want to, I follow this more. I'm more with this, then we can get into that. But like, you know, throwing all this material at me, it's like, bro, I'm fasting, so I'm already like, not like, I'm a little bit, you know, irritable. It's like, bro, like, please, you know what I'm saying? Like, I'm not all the way like my happiest self. I just made a decision in my life. My parents don't really kind of know yet. A lot of my friends, my church family doesn't even know, you know, and it kind of like got into the way of my Ramadan, you know, to just always being overwhelmed, always being like feeling I'm not doing enough. The only time that I really felt at peace was going to the Masjid during the night, where no one could text me, because guess what? My phone's not there. You know, I'm praying. I have alone time, you know, and I'm with brothers that are doing the same thing, and it's just this calmness. And then, you know, obviously, you know, throughout the day, listening and reading the Quran and praying and stuff, like that's the beautiful thing. But I guess that's just probably the only negative. Just kind of like everybody else's comments on what I'm doing and what I need to be doing. I think that I'm so grateful for the community that I do have, whether it's here, whether it's all over the internet or the phone. Like, they have really supported me.
Yeah. And usually what I found, even when I turned back to Islam, because I believe that Muslims that went away from Islam and came back to it have a similar journey to those that converted. Muslims, even born and raised, at some point have to convert to Islam as well, have to consciously choose the religion.
Yeah.
That usually takes like 2 years, man, at least. And you can tell me in 2 years if that's your experience too, 100%. But when it really kicks in is 2 years, in my experience at least. And my advice to converts, I know that's probably like self-contradictory to what we're doing right now, but my advice to converts is always stay off the internet with your influence or with your story as much as possible, because there's like 2.8 billion of us, man. It's kind of hard to control the Muslims out there, but we could try to control ourselves as much as possible. 100%. I love that you're wearing this. Why'd you choose Naruto, man? I love that you chose him.
Man, I just felt like, you know, in that Naruto mood where I just, you know, just come in and, you know, kill it today. So
you feel like there's a lot of Islamic beliefs in Naruto, right?
100%.
Like the way he forgives people, the way he basically changes his enemy just through forgiveness, just through the power of his personality and stuff like that. It's very, very well. I obviously the Prophet, peace be upon him, is much better because he's real. Yes, sir. And that's one of the things that I think is most striking about the Prophet Muhammad, peace be upon him, is he would shock you. He always shocked his enemies with his grace. Very similar to Jesus, peace be upon him, in that way. You watch any other animes?
Man, a bunch. Right now I'm watching the new Demon Slayer just came out, so I'm watching that.
What?
Yeah.
I've been on Netflix lately, so every time it says new season with Demon Slayer or any anime, I'm like, they're just probably just catching up to Crunchyroll at this point. But there's a new season for it.
Yeah, so I have Crunchyroll, and the new season just came out. So probably 2 episodes have already dropped. The new episode probably was yesterday. So there's 2 episodes that came out, and right now I'm watching that and My Hero Academia.
Okay, I love My Hero.
Yeah,
it's a good one.
Yeah, it's really I mean, it's really cool to see like the art and see the storylines. It's a lot of beautiful things. And I know a lot of people look at anime, they're like, it's a cartoon. It's like, no, bro, it's not a cartoon. Let me talk to you real quick. Okay, let me tell you. Let me put you on to this, and then you're gonna come back and not have that same opinion. Yeah, it's not. Okay, but yeah,
Japanese writing's different.
Oh yeah,
Eastern writing in general is different.
Yeah, cartoons in America are sometimes like, it's just, you're kind of watching it and it's just brain dead. It's like, what's going on right now? But in the Japanese, it's like there's like freaking things you can learn about yourself. You know what I'm saying? There's been an anime that I've actually cried to. I'm not a crier. I've actually cried. I'm like, bro, this is real. Like, I'm going through this. Like wow, you know? And, you know, if you don't want to watch anime, that's fine. That's cool with you. Live your life. But me, personally, I'm going to tap in. I'm going to get right and enjoy that, you know, what the Japanese are doing with their animations and stuff like that. So.
No, anime writing's profound. Right. I remember even in Naruto, one of the most beautiful things there was a lot actually, but the evil guy, Hachimura, his name is? I forget their names all the time, but the main evil guy, the snake dude, even though he was evil, he said something profound. You can even get truth from a liar. He said, when they were asking him why he's doing all of this, he said, I want to be an infinite being. And they were like, why do you want to be an infinite being? And he said, without infinity, life is meaningless. And I was like, it's exactly it. That's exactly my argument for why religion is true. If with heaven and hell, the concept becomes infinite, our life becomes infinite. And I personally believe that our souls are infinite.
100%.
With the atheistic argument that our souls are finite, just like our body, to me, life becomes meaningless. Why am I doing anything that I'm doing then? Infinity is the only thing that brings meaning to life.
That's real, bro. I might have to post that somewhere.
It seems like are you an influencer? I don't know. How many followers you got on Twitter?
You know what I'm saying? No, but you know, if you know, inshallah, if that's what Allah has planned for me, then you know what it is. But I'm not a camera person, so you know, I'll just.
You did great today, man. I got 3 cameras on you right now.
I'll try not to look at them, you know what I'm saying, so I don't get, you know.
Alhamdulillah, I think,
I feel good. I feel home.
Yeah, alhamdulillah, man.
This is beautiful right here. So.
Appreciate you, dog. Appreciate you coming on.
Definitely.
Shout out to Epic Masjid, Omar Soyman, Ustad Bajur, Yasser, Qadhi. They seem to have played a big role in your journey. Shout out to Palestine, Free Palestine.
Free Palestine all day, yes.
Habibi. Jevin Odom, thank you so much for joining the Unsalted Podcast, brother.
Appreciate you, dog.
Habibi. Thank you guys for listening to the Unsalted Podcast.